News of the World's Columbian Expedition to be held in 1893 in Chicago, Illinois, drew a young Ferris to the city. In 1891, the directors of the World Columbian Expedition issued a challenge to American engineers to conceive of a monument for the fair that would surpass the Eiffel Tower, the great structure of Paris International Exposition in 1889. The planners wanted something original, daring, and unique. Ferris responded with a proposed wheel from which visitors would be able to view the entire expedition, a wheel that would out-Eiffel Eiffel. Why was the 1893 fair so important? Daniel Burnham, the eminent architect charged with turning a boggy square mile of Chicago into a world-dazzling showpiece, assembled an all-star team of designers and gave them one directive: make no little plans. The last expedition, held in Paris, must be outdone, and so they began. Many new products familiar to us today and inventions were introduced. William Wrigley Jr. handed out gum to sell his soap and baking powder. The gum became the most popular item, so he began mass-producing gum and introduced it at the fair. The first flavor was juicy fruit, and mints and cinnamons followed soon after. A former slave named Nancy Green got her fame by taking on the role as Aunt Jemima. Her pancakes were a sensation. Cracker Jacks also got their start at the Chicago Fair, but the prizes inside the box didn't start till 1912. Spray paint, new shoes, and a beer competition that was won by, you guessed it, Pabst Blue Ribbon. Josephine Cochran invented the first dishwasher in 1886 after years of trying to find a way to wash dishes faster than her servants could. The dishwasher she invented had compartments for the dishes that were turned by a motorized wheel. She introduced this invention at the World's Fair in 1893. The very first moving sidewalk was one of the exhibits. It cost 5 cents to ride, and riders could stand or walk on the first platform, which traveled at about 2 miles per hour, or sit up in the second parallel platform, which ran at 4 miles per hour and had benches. Unfortunately, the sidewalk was unreliable and kept breaking down. However, when it did work, it was capable of carrying about 6,000 people at a time. On May 1st, President Grover Cleveland pushed a button that lit nearly 100,000 incandescent lamps, illuminating the grand white city. Squashed pennies as souvenirs to commemorative stamps and coins. So many inventions were introduced in 1893, but nothing really stood out like the Ferris wheel.
He was born in Galesburg, Illinois, and moved to Pittsburgh because Carnegie was making steel here. And he was a bridge builder, that is, Ferris was, and he was already a well-respected bridge
House on
builder.
Arch Street, where Ferris lived for several years. The plaque on the front of the house tells you the wheel debuted in 1893.
The French had just designed and built the Eiffel Tower, and that was to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the French Revolution. Chicago was having basically the Chicago World's Fair, and it was to commemorate the 400th anniversary of Columbus landing on America. And they were looking for something to challenge the Eiffel Tower. Ferris was 32 years old when he designed the wheel. He designed it in a Chicago chop house, and he designed it on a napkin, and it went from napkin to reality. It was an architectural challenge. It was an engineering challenge. I could see him as an engineer really being challenged by that idea. You know, how can we get something almost 1 million pounds? And if we do it, how are we going to turn it? Well, you know, all of that was just enormous. It required such engineering feats to be leapt. And he did it.
Some Pittsburgh engineers get formal invitations to be in Chicago for the inaugural ride on June 21st, 1893 at 3:00 p.m. The Ferris wheel is born.
It's 264 feet tall, and the axle itself was the largest single piece of steel made at that time, and it was 10 tons. There were 36 cars. They were glass enclosed. They could accommodate 60 people, 40 people sitting, 20 people standing. So over 2,100 people would be in Ferris's wheel.
Yeah, they were like...
He used the same suspension ideas that they used on bridges in building the wheel. It would take 10 minutes to make 1 revolution, and a ride was 2 revolutions. He charged them 50 cents per to ride in the Ferris wheel, but 1.5 million people rode on the Ferris wheel in the 6 months that it was spinning around at the Chicago Exposition. They're up, 264 feet. They're on top of the city of Chicago. They've got Lake Michigan right to the east. I mean, it must have been a beautiful sight. And certainly for that time and that place, it was really heights that people had never been, quite literally.
After the fair, the wheel was sold and dismantled, then moved to St. Louis for a while. But things had fallen apart for Ferris.
Ferris's bridge company went broke. He returned to Pittsburgh. His wife left him. His house was foreclosed upon him. He moved into the Hotel Duquesne in downtown Pittsburgh.
And then he died fairly young and alone, pretty miserable, I think.
Ferris died at Mercy Hospital, apparently of typhoid fever, age 38. But his name is immortal because of the wheel. And maybe it's